All right. Welcome everyone to tonight's special virtual education series event, wherein we're going to talk a little bit more about the World Parkinson Congress. I don't know how many people saw mine and Angee's Facebook Live that we did from the Congress, but I just want to say, I know I speak for everyone who's presenting today, and we're all going to go around and introduce ourselves, that we feel very privileged to have gone to this event. It was fantastic and eye-opening in so many ways, and I can say that my head is still spinning. We were all just kind of trading notes before the call. I'm still trying to make sense of all my notes and make sure I got everything because it was so much information. But just by way of introduction to kick us off here, I'm Kristin Rossi. I'm the CEO of the Michigan Parkinson Foundation. And I've been in my position for about a year and a quarter at this point. So this was wonderful for my Parkinson's education as well. I came from the Alzheimer's Association before this, so I had a pretty good groundwork of neurodegenerative diseases, and I can say it did help me in a lot of the research talks, just being able to translate a little bit more and being up on the dementia research as well, and just knowing, okay, when we're talking about Lewy bodies, this is what we're talking about. When we're talking about alpha-synuclein, that's kind of the beta amyloid and the tau tangles of Alzheimer's and dementia. So it was really good that it translated as well. I had so many takeaways from this tremendous Congress. It was hard to really boil it down. But my three takeaways, and I've asked everybody on the call that's presenting today to just bring up their three key takeaways, are the environmental contributions to Parkinson's disease. I found it wildly fascinating, and we're going to be starting with that tonight. New trends in technology, infections in Parkinson's disease, and I just added another one in there, and PD as a multi-system a disorder and how to take approaches in that way. So we'll see what we can get through. I know we have a lot of information and we want to keep it conversational as well. So we're going to take a couple breaks throughout the presentation so that you can ask questions and you can be heard as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our friends from the Parkinson's Association of West Michigan. And I just want to say that I got to the Congress not knowing that they were there. So I did a leadership forum on that Monday, and one of my colleagues from a group that I'm in said, "Did you know there's someone, behind us from West Michigan?" And I said, "No." She said, "Do you know them?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And that was Shaun. So Shaun and Christina, I'm going to let you take it away next.
My name is Shaun Hindley, and I'm a board member for the Parkinson's Association of West Michigan. And I had the privilege of going to WPC in Barcelona. It was a 4-day conference. And over those 4 days, I mostly listened to talks on research and how the disease is treated. And I have 3 takeaways that I want to discuss. There was an interesting theory on brain first or body first disease. And then I want to talk to patients about tracking their disease. And then I just have a few tidbits of information. Christina?
My name's Kristina Hindley. I'm Shaun's wife. We actually were able to go to the WPC in Japan 4 years ago as well, which was equally as mind-blowing, mind-saturating as it was this year in Barcelona. My 3 highlights that I wanted to take away were similar to Kristin's: pesticide and chemical toxicant contributions to PD would be one of them. The second one was best options for nutrition in PD. Also, that expands to the general population, not just PD, but very useful for PD patients. And if we have time, I would like to get to cognitive impairment and dementia. There were so many sessions and roundtables, and the booklet was just endless on what we could attend. And I kind of felt like I was missing so much because I could only attend so many. So I tried to go the patient end where Shaun went to the research end so that we could kind of diversify as much as possible.
That's a wonderful approach. Angee and I were definitely trying to do the same sort of thing. You know, both coming from the Michigan Parkinson Foundation, we wanted to make sure we were diversifying and getting our efforts in multiple places. So Angee, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Angie. I'm a physical therapist. Many of you know me because I teach the Tuesday morning Zoom class. I recently took a new position working with the Michigan Parkinson's Foundation. I'm super excited about that. This is my second week. I'm their exercise director. So yeah, just getting started. So excited about that. This was my second World Parkinson's Congress. The first one I went to was in Portland, which was a great experience as well. I guess my three takeaways are similar to Shaun's. One is the importance of tracking symptoms for people that have Parkinson's, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Of course, the second one is exercise and the importance of that. There's a lot of talks on that. And then the last one is I just want to touch briefly on, I thought this was really cool, like hope for the future as far as research and emerging therapies. Sometimes it's very frustrating, I know, because it seems like there's never, like we're not close to a cure, but research are working really hard. And so we're getting there. There's definitely hope. So those are my three takeaways.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angee.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to mute all again because we just had one other person hop on. So for the other people hosting here, just know that you're going to have to unmute. And then I'm also going to share my screen. So just bear with me while I do that. Okay, we should be good there. Okay, I was a little worried about this, but it is not showing me my PowerPoint now because it's reverting to your PowerPoint, Angee. Let me try one other thing. Here we go. I knew it could do it. All right. Can everybody see my screen? Is that yes? Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, we got this lovely design of this presentation from Christina. Angee and I had been working on what we wanted to put together, but this was so much more beautiful. So, and let me just get these other people that have just joined the call in. And I think I got them all. All right. And Angee, I made you a co-host, so I'm hoping that allows you to admit people in.
Yeah,
You just watch and see if anyone else needs to be admitted.
for sure.
All right, wonderful. So anyway, all the accolades to Christina for this really nicely designed presentation. But yes, like Shaun said, the Congress was July 4th through the 7th. We were actually there a little bit early, which was really nice, and something I'd like to do in the future as well. On Monday, there was kind of a leadership forum where you got to meet others that were taking leadership in this space from all around the world, and that was amazing. The second day was kind of pre-Congress courses, which were also, I think, definitely worth getting there early. A lot of the information was recycled later in the program of the 3 days. But if you had already seen it on that first day, you could kind of manage your time elsewhere, which I really, really appreciated. So for me, it was a week. I was lucky enough to be able to be there for a week. All right. Trying to go to the next slide here. All right. So I just want to also highlight a program that we're going to have next Tuesday for our virtual education. We're going to have Mason Ziegler from the Michael J. Fox Foundation, their public policy arm. And he's a public policy officer that's going to talk to us about the national plan to end Parkinson's disease. He's also going to talk a little bit more about what they're doing in terms of legislation with paraquat. and kind of the legal action that they're taking there, and then also what they're doing for veterans from a public policy perspective as well. So a lot of what we're talking about here today, and especially where the environmental contributions to Parkinson's are concerned, this is going to be a great talk. So join us again, same time, same place next week. All right. And next are just a couple of pictures that kind of highlighted the trip. On the top left, Angee and I meeting with the one of the directors from In Motion in Cleveland, who's just doing really great work. I also was lucky enough to bring my kids to this to Spain. They enjoyed the day while I was in the Congress all day. And they had childcare there. So one of the days my kids came to childcare, and then when the day was over, we brought them to the Sagrada Familia. So it was really nice. And then in the upper right-hand corner, I'm a part of a group called the Independent Parkinson's Network. So we all gathered, we're from all over the country. This was a great way for us all to get together. And then the lower right-hand corner is me and Shaun. And this was really from that moment where I said, oh no, there is someone from West Michigan right behind me. I have to get over there. So yeah, it was really great experience. And this is kind of it highlighted in pictures for you. So these are the meaningful takeaways that I already talked about, but I guess two others that I just want to quickly mention was the connections. We can talk a lot about the information that we all received during our time there, but the connections that we were able to make with people from all over the world were 100% invaluable. I got to talk to someone from the Italian Parkinson Association on that first day, the leadership forum. And he brought something up that I think is something they're really pulling for in Europe, but hasn't caught up in the US yet. And it took me a while to understand, but he kept saying, don't call us morbus, don't call us morbo. And I had to look it up. And it's don't call it disease, basically. Don't associate me with a disease. Just call it Parkinson's. We have a lot of other diseases out there that we just say the first word, I have cancer, whatever it is. I have Alzheimer's. That doesn't tack the disease onto it. And I heard that a lot throughout the next couple days. So it's definitely something I'm more conscious of now, and the insinuation that might have for some people as well. So I thought that was really interesting. I was also able to connect with some friends that I had already known at the San Diego Parkinson's Association. And I've been trying to get a mentorship program off the ground that is very similar to theirs. And lo and behold, they were trying to get people hooked up with exactly what they do. So we've engaged them to help us create our own mentorship program using them as a model. So that could not have worked out better. This has been on my radar for the last year, just trying to figure out how to get it into action, and it's coming to fruition. So even some of the people on this call are going to be serving as our mentors. So that's really exciting. So for the next slide, as we just kind of get into the pesticide contribution, the environmental contributions to PD, I'm going to turn it over to Christina, because you so accurately and meticulously put all of this information together. I had a lot of the key takeaways at the end, and then put some things in the middle, but I loved it. And I think you got the most important pieces. So I'll let you jump in for this part, and you just let me know when you want to hand it back over to me.
Okay. Yeah, this talk really, really blew me away. There was a lot of information that I really had no clue. And I'm not sure if it was this talk or if it was one that was very related, because there were three that were very similar. But when James Parkinson wrote his book, he stated that it was a rare disorder. It is not rare anymore. We cannot say it's rare anymore. And that is because Parkinson's is a man-made disease. I know we just said don't say disease, I'm sorry. But so pesticide use is found in three sectors. So agricultural, and California uses 25% of the pesticides for all of the USA. It's used in public health, so against things like mosquitoes for malaria, things like that. And then we use it for personal use as well, or golf courses use it as well. This use has been increasing steadily since World War II, and really in general has not plateaued or dropped off here in the US. Organophosphates, which are insecticides, are the most widely used, but they are also the largest contributors to neurotoxicity. So it's used so widely that quote from Dr. Ruiz says, "No one will not have this due to how widely it is used." So basically they're saying that no one is going to be free from neurotoxicity issues because of how widely it's used, which is really scary if you really think about it. This next point is one of the ones that blew me away. TCPY is found in 96% of urine samples in America. And DDT is found in 100% of blood samples in America, even though we've not used DDT in 51 years. So it is a forever chemical or a long-lasting chemical. So some of this is reversible, some of this is not. We really need to work on what is reversible, and we need to be louder about it. Because paraquat, you've seen the commercials on TV, it's still in high use despite the knowledge that it causes neurological disorders. Again, California has the highest use in the USA, but the fact that we know it causes neurological disorders and it's still used and it's still legal is a really scary thing. Insecticides, they're meant to target insect brains. That's why they target human brains. That was a connection I had honestly never made. It sounds simple, but I had not put the two together. Pesticides and insecticides will affect transporters, protein transporters, metabolizers, the DNA repair in your body, and the immune function in proteins. So they affect quite a bit in your cells. The second thing that blew me away is that regulatory agencies are only required to regulate individual pesticides, not mixtures. So as soon as you put two pesticides or insecticides together, they don't have to regulate it. Also, pesticides do not need to be reevaluated over time, which was another one that blew me away. This could explain why paraquat, things like that, are still in use today, because they don't need to be reevaluated. So if you're wondering which pesticides cause PD, it's really still unknown, but they found in a study that combinations are severely toxic. It said in one study, 56 out of 600 pesticides were found to play a role in PD. It was a PEG study. And it really does matter how quickly your body can metabolize these toxins. So if you have a fast metabolism for it, it will not affect you as quickly, but then the people that have slower metabolism, it's going to hit them harder. And so that explains why you may develop something, but your neighbor may not, and you may have been exposed to the same pesticides or the same toxins.
And yeah, that really blew me away, because I know that we have some families that we work with as well, and they're pretty sure environmental contributions are playing a role in their Parkinson's. But I know one has many family members. I'm trying to remember, 6 or 7 family members. 3 of the family members have PD, and this really kind of underscored for me that it could still be environmental, because you see the 3 family members and you instantly think genetic, it must be genetic, but still the genetic component of Parkinson's is still pretty low when you look in the grand scheme of things. So this metabolizing comment really rang true for me, because I thought, okay, the other siblings may have metabolized it, no problem. And these 3 in this family in particular that I'm thinking of may not have. And I know there are some other good longitudinal studies that some are genetic, some are environmental. And yeah, I underlined and really just tried to bold those points that I had in my takeaways as well. Knowing that they're not followed up on once they go to market, that pesticides aren't followed up on, was just crazy to me. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about paraquat in the coming slides here, but it is even banned in the country that made it, that manufactured it. It's banned there and it's still not banned here. And it's crazy to me. And I know there's this war kind of going on with the EPA. But I also found it really interesting that Dr. Ruiz said, you know, why is my study in California? And she said it's really because of pesticide use and their reporting system. So they have a Parkinson's registry in California. So the two marry very nicely to give them the data that they come up with. All right, we'll keep on this track. And once we're done with this portion of our conversation, we'll take a pause for questions. Do you want to keep going, Christina? You feeling good?
I can, yes.
Okay, good. I added a couple things in, so just don't be surprised by that.
Grown. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So as Kristin said earlier, genetics and environmental should be looked together, not separately. Heavy metals, pathogens, head trauma, solvents, pesticides, air pollution, it should all be examined together, not separately. All of the above can induce neurodegeneration, alter your dopa oxidation and uptake, cause microglial activation, target mitochondrial function, and cause multiple dysfunctions. So I think what I wanted to convey when I wrote all that is this stuff is seriously toxic. And we need to, as the PD community, we need to be louder about getting rid of this stuff because there's no doubt that it is causing things like PD, dementia, anything related to that, Lewy body. Trichloroethylene or TCE that's one thing that has been reduced in its use in the US, but it still lingers in the environment. It doesn't break down. So it's one thing that we've reduced, but then it's also growing globally. Other countries are starting to use it more. And it has shown a 6-time risk of developing PD. So you've seen all those commercials for Camp Lejeune. That's TCE that got into their groundwater and then got into their drinking water. Then it's exposed through employment. It was used as a degreaser as one thing. Groundwater, drinking water, soil contamination, the list goes on and on and on for exposure. And the way TCE causes damage is it prevents your mitochondrial turnover, which is really, really important, and leads to lysosomal dysfunction. Even passive inhalation of TCE is far more potent than ingestion, which actually surprised me that would be more potent than ingestion.
Oh boy, I think I repeated that down below. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. So the LRRK2 kinase activity increase has been seen in trials of rats with TCE exposure, but it has been shown that reversal is possible with the LRRK2 inhibitor in rats so far. So, and again, when tested in rats, it also confirmed that inhalation is more potent than ingestion.
All right. And then I just added these. I took tons of pictures of slides, but you know, really everything that we're saying that pesticides have been linked to PD in studies since the 1990s. This is nothing new, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. And then this just kind of breaks down a little bit more of what Christina was saying, how the brain is a target for pesticides, but you did a great job explaining that. And then this is just a Parkinson's disease risk kind of grid that they had here that I found really fascinating, that like the pesticides to watch out for, difficulties in terms of air pollution, heavy metals, head trauma, all the things that make it more likely for you to get PD. This map, this was great. Christina, if you want to talk about this one, I was so glad you put this in.
Yeah, this map, I had to include this map because this was another blow me away moment. Obviously, you're looking at the map, blues are going to be your very, very little PD prevalence, and your reds are going to be very, very, very high prevalence for PD. So red, excuse me. So red and orange, you've got Alaska, Canada, the US, and then Argentina. I knew that was a part of Brazil, just didn't remember which country it was. I am seriously geographically challenged. Don't worry about me. Those countries, and those are industrialized countries. We are very, very heavily industrialized, and those are where PD is most prevalent. So again, going back to PD being a man-made disease, it is very, very much man-made. But you can see too, it's rising in other countries, which is really sad.
Absolutely. Well, and this one, we've got a couple slides on this, but Ray Dorsey, and I'll let you just continue. Christina was my favorite of the speakers. He really, and I'll say on the next slide too, made me feel like I needed to take action.
And I will try to be quick because I'm looking at the time and it's already
too. Yeah, I know.
Okay, so yeah, as you can see on the map, their PD rates are highest in industrialized worlds and growing in India and China. So because PD is man-made, it's also preventative. And I already went through about James Parkinson, so I won't talk about that. And I didn't know this until I researched it, but the discovery of the shaking palsy, which is what James Parkinson called it, came in 1817, and that was at the rise of the Industrial Revolution. So again, you're looking at industrialization being the fuel for all this neurotoxicity. Dorsey argued that air pollution, pesticides, and TCE are the three prevailing environmental toxins that are fueling PD. We all know paraquat is incredibly toxic, but not banned. This really blew me away that TCE was used in the past to decontaminate coffee, and they showed a Sanka container on the slide. It was also used to sedate pregnant women. I just about died when I read that.
Me too.
It's still used today, mostly commercially as a degreaser and in the production of refrigerants. Every agency around the world, they listed them all on a slide. They all say it's a carcinogen, yet it's still legal. The Rotterdam study in the Netherlands was really, really, really interesting, ongoing since 1990, targets neurological diseases among others, and has shown a 60% decrease in PD from 1990 to 2000. That's just 10 years. They decreased air pollution, pesticide use, and their use of TCE. So if they can do it, so can we. And then if we look at the eradication of polio, smallpox, HIV/AIDS prevention, the MAD program to reduce drunk driving, PD can be eradicated. We just need to be louder about what we need, what needs to be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is the book. I don't know if everybody can see it, that it was Ray Dorsey, Michael Oken, who actually moderated this session, Bass Bloom, who Angie's going to talk about, and Todd Shearer that wrote this. It's about the Parkinson's pandemic is how they were kind of stating it at the time. And it was right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So the book didn't get quite the legs that they were hoping at the time, but I can't wait to read this because I think it just dives more deeply into each of the things that we're talking about here. And I actually think Christina did a great job talking about all of this. And I loved, he gave examples of Mothers Against Drunk Driving, about HIV/AIDS. He also talked about lung cancer. 100 years ago, it was an anomaly. And then, you know, cigarettes came onto the market, everybody started smoking them, and boom, we had lung cancer all over. And through public policy, we're trying to change the trajectory of cancer and use of cigarettes. And to Christina's point as well, this is what we can do. We can make changes in this arena. Yeah, and he said this, I had quotes written down from him. In 1966, they knew what paraquat could do, but they did nothing. The Marines knew about the contaminated water and tried to cover it up. He also told the story I thought was fascinating. Brian Grant of the Brian Grant Foundation was on Camp Lejeune as a child. And his brother got a lung condition and his father died of cancer that was actually linked to TCEs. So we have an entire family that was really affected really long time ago from TCEs. So Ray Dorsey just ended his talk by saying Parkinson's is rising, it's man-made, and it's preventable. So our health should be before commercial gain, and we are the ones that need to demand change. So I'm just going to make a plug one last time to come to our talk next Tuesday and talk about public policy in the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease. All right, I'm going to pause right here for questions. And I'm actually going to pause our share of the screen here. So does anyone have questions that they'd like to ask at this time before we delve into more? And I'm going to try to look at the
Can you hear me?
look at the chat as well.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Let me turn my volume up.
Hey, Christina, I have a question for you. Was DEET considered a carcinogen? DEET is what's in,
You need to go out?
Right. They did not talk, I did not hear anything about DEET. Personally, I don't use it. I won't use it. I have vitiligo, which is a autoimmune disorder where you lose the pigment in your skin. So I have to be very careful about what I put on my skin. To my knowledge, I don't know if Kristin or Angee can speak to this. I don't think DEET was included in their talks, but I personally I won't use it.
I didn't hear that either, but if I took one thing away from this talk is that we all need to be a lot more careful about what we're putting on and in our bodies and what we're being exposed to. So even things that, he talked about TCEs and dry cleaning. That's something that just wasn't on my radar at all. And he said, look for environmentally friendly dry cleaning. He said, watch what you put on your lawn. Don't put Roundup on your lawn. So even these things that aren't banned or that we don't know yet, I think it's definitely something to be careful of and skeptical of.
and I have a follow-up question. How do you explain that Canada has a higher rate of Parkinson's than the US when it's less developed?
Canada's not really less developed. My husband and I are actually Canadian. So I am unsure. I didn't hear a lot about how it was in the red and the US was only in the orange. Shaun, do you have any?
It could have to do with possibly the population density. Most of Canada's population is in large cities where there's higher pollution. Whereas in the US, the Midwest states where no one hardly lives would kind of take that percentage down, but that's only a guess.
Yeah, and I would say this book might tell us more. I would do a book club on this if anybody's interested, and just see if, we get some of the answers to these questions while reading.
Yeah. So I did read the book and they do go into more detail about the different pesticides. It's a really good read. If
Right,
want
Angee can help lead our book club.
I'll have to reread it.
Let's go to Pridgen's iPad. Oh.
Hi there, it's Nora Lynn. I was just curious about the who are we supposed to be talking to tell them to regulate this stuff better, I guess?
So tune in next Tuesday or this coming Tuesday, August 1st. And the public policy officer from Michael J. Fox is going to be joining us. And he is going to be talking about the National Plan to End Parkinson's, but I asked him to speak more about paraquat in particular. And he can give us some more ideas for action. He did go into, I just had a meeting with him today, the Michael J. Fox foundation, or I think it's the foundation itself, not the public policy arm, is suing the EPA. So these are, conversations about the EPA, about the FDA, about where they kind of come together, and holding them accountable. One thing they did say in this session too is that those agencies pay off their doctors. They pay for their doctors to say what they want them to say.
Oh, geez.
And that all these people, Ray Dorsey, all these other people are under attack. I think they're targeted in many ways for trying to come out against kind of the commercial gain side of what the pesticides do.
And also in the chat, Sharon C., if you click on the chat, she wrote that there's, if you call the United States Capitol Switchboard, she put a number in there, and you
Oh,
can ask to be
nice.
transferred to the representative, and ask them to support the act in the national.
The
plan.
House bill.
Yeah, the House bill.
Okay, that's wonderful. Yes. And Mason
Thank you,
is gonna be
Sharon.
yes, thank you. Mason is going to be talking about exactly that House bill next week. So that's wonderful. And thank you for the number. All right. Okay. And we'll take just one more question, then we're going to move over to Shaun. So Kevin.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Kevin Kwok. I'm with the Davis Finney Foundation. I'm a board member, but I'm also a resident Michigander. And I just happen to be right here in Ann Arbor today with General My Care Provider in here. I was delighted that you started your topic here with environmental issues, because this is one of my deepest passions. And in fact, Todd Shear has used my patient story of how when I was younger and in college in Ann Arbor, I went home to work at my father's company, which was the Dow Chemical Company, in the summers, hauling toxic waste. And I'm a firm believer that, and you can't prove this causality, but I'm a firm believer that my exposure to toxic chemicals actually caused my Parkinson's. And so when I heard these number of presentations in Barcelona, which I happen to also really track, I was so excited to hear that I really raised the banner. But so oftentimes when people come home, back from these meetings, it sort of dies down and then we forget about it. And one of the things Ray also mentioned was how little emphasis is placed on prevention. And to me, if I could prevent my kids from getting Parkinson's, I would think that's as good as a cure in some ways. So anyway, I don't want to go on a rampage here, but I'm happy to be back in Michigan with all of you. Thanks so much for hearing me out.
Thank you, Kevin. And I 100% agree. If we can prevent this from hitting our children, from hitting the next generation, that's really something. Yeah, as good as a cure, that's a wonderful way to put it, and a very generous way to put it. But absolutely, it's crazy to me that if we know something causes this disease, that we wouldn't stop it right away, and that we all wouldn't be up in arms. So I think this is a conversation that needs to continue.
Very much so.
Absolutely. Well, I want to be mindful of time. I think it's very clear that this environmental conversation could be its own education seminar. So I'm going to take a note on that, and I'm going to look for some experts that can come and speak to us both in person and virtually about this more, because I see there's a lot of interest in it. I'm going to pitch it over to Shaun. And Shaun, why don't you try to give us in probably 6 minutes, your overview and your takeaway.
All right, so 6 minutes. So here we go.
That's hard. Sorry about that.
There's a theory that one of the researchers talked about, was called brain disease first or body disease first. And it's a theory about where does Parkinson's start? Because patients will have alpha-synuclein in their gut, along as well having alpha-synuclein in their brains. And so in the theory about it starts in the gut it goes via the vagus nerve up to the brain and then goes to both sides of the brain. In the one where it starts in the brain first, the theory is it starts in the amygdala, which is a nucleus in the limbic system, moves over to the substantia nigra, then into the brain stem, back up to the other side of the hemisphere of the brain, and then also down into the gut. And so by looking at a review of PD patient brain autopsies, they've been able to find these two separate groups of people where the disease is starting in their gut or their disease started in their brain. They've also done animal studies to demonstrate that the alpha-synuclein can travel via the vagus nerve up to the brain and vice versa. So that was a quick thing on that. And then I think the most important one here is discussing why you should be tracking your disease. So let me see what I want to start with. Well, first of all, patients usually only see their doctor once or twice a year, and they probably only see their doctor for 1 hour a year. So your doctor in 2 visits a year can't really track your disease. He sees you on 1 day and he says, okay, you're at this stage and you should be taking this much medicine. But he didn't see you for the previous 30 days of that month. And so by tracking the disease yourself, you can help the doctor with your treatment. The other thing about tracking as well is that a patient's recall may be deficient. So the doctor might ask a question, but the patient answers it incorrectly. And so if you're tracking your disease, you have notes written out, you can show that to him, and then he can see on a piece of paper how your disease is progressing. Now, what does this do for the patient? Well, it can really predict the outcome, your clinical outcome, so how the patient is progressing over time. It can do a trajectory of the disease, and it can also help with anticipating progression. Now, the easiest way to measure is to wear a digital wearable like an Apple Watch. There are several wearables available currently. I don't know the names of them in the US, and I'm not sure if insurance will cover them, but there are wearables that can measure certain things. It will measure tapping. It will do a few other things. It will measure if you fall. So we're not quite there yet with a digital wearable, but the wearable could be an important, because one of the doctors at the meeting said that when a patient goes to see their doctor, their tremor is worse than it normally is. And he also then went on to say that their gait is better when they see the doctor than it usually is. And he explained that he said he saw the patient in the office and his gait was fine. And then the patient went and walked out to go to his car and his gait was terrible. And so that's how this objective thing that he described. A wearable can also do sporadic events like falls or near falls, because sometimes the doctor asks you, well, have you fallen in the last year? Well, no, but did you almost fall? All right. So tracking yourself, there are 8,760 hours in a year. For one of those hours, you see your clinical doctor. The rest of those hours is your time, so you can track this yourself. And when you track your disease, it leads to more knowledge of PD, and that results in better healthcare satisfaction. When you track your disease, you can also determine if a new symptom is PD related or is not PD related. You can answer questions during your annual visit, and general knowledge about Parkinson's leads to knowledge about your Parkinson's, which leads to what works for me or for the patient. So a simple way to track. Just get a piece of paper and draw a graph. On the x-axis, you're going to have hours in the day. On the y-axis, you're just going to have three things. Bad, upside down smiley face, upside down face, okay, meaning an okay, and good with a smiley face. And then what you do is every hour you mark on this graph how you're feeling. You also mark on the graph when you take your Cinemed. And so and you do it every day for a week, and you have one day, day one would be red, day two would be a blue pen, day three would be a green pen. And you do that, and this way the doctor can see if there's any change in your, how you're feeling, depending on when you take your medicine, and he can see a snapshot of an entire week. And this is very helpful for him when he's trying to decide about your medicine and how much medicine to take. All right. So one last thing, an abnormal DAT scan does not mean the patient has Parkinson's. A DAT scan needs to be used in conjunction with a clinical exam by a doctor. The main prodromal risk factors for Parkinson's are abnormal loss of smell, REM sleep disorder or RBD, constipation, and mood disorders. 27% of patients with PD have a family history of PD, and 15% of patients have a gene for Parkinson's, which is either GABA1 at 10%, LRRK2 at 3%, or Parkin at 1%. And that's all I have.
All right, that's wonderful. Thank you, Shaun. Yeah, that was crazy to me that most of the time what we're talking about is like the 85% of people that have no connection to any sort of genetic component as well. All right, I want to make sure that we have time for Angee here. So can we see Angee's presentation?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Angee, I'm going to let you go ahead and get started, and then we'll save some questions for after that.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to share a few pictures. Like Kristin said, one of the great things about going to WPC was meeting up with people and networking. And I just have to say, I'm so glad that Kevin came on, because I want to share this brief story. So the last picture is a picture of me and Kevin's care partner, Jenny Roll. But I have to tell you this story. So when we met at World Parkinson's Congress at the Davis Finney Foundation booth, we both looked at each other and we said, "You look familiar." And I'm like, "You look familiar." So we went to high school together and we played soccer together in high school, and we ended up meeting again in Barcelona at the World Parkinson's Congress.
That's crazy.
So yeah, crazy, just the connections you make, and you think it's a big world, and it is a big world, but it's really a small world at the same time. So I just had to share that. So it was really good meeting her. Again, I hadn't seen her since high school. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on. This is going to be brief. So my first takeaway was the importance of tracking symptoms, and Shaun just did a great job explaining it. So I'm not going to really talk about it anymore. But Dr. Bosch Bloom, he presented on the importance of tracking symptoms. And, as Shaun mentioned, just so that the physicians and neurologists can have a better insight into real life performance. As you all know, when you see your neurologist once or twice a year, you're kind of, quote, like performing for them. And I see that too as a physical therapist in the clinic. People will come in the first day and I'll have them walk, and their care partner will be like, "Wow, that's the fastest I've ever seen them walk," because they're like performing. So being able to track real symptoms in real life is important, just so that we can service, people with Parkinson's better. And then obviously we need to get more objective measures, like real life objective measures and biomarkers, so that we can take those measurements and then provide the best treatment based on your symptoms and how you're presenting. And then, as Shaun mentioned, there's a lot of new technology to track symptoms. So one is, like, if any of you have an Apple Watch, I have one, you can download an app to your phone called Strive PD, STRIVE PD, and it connects to your Apple Watch, and it helps you keep track of your symptoms throughout the day. And then there was another presentation. I didn't go to this one. I don't know if you went to this one, Kristin, or someone else did, where they were talking about a device that would just sit in your room.
Yes,
And
I actually have that. I can
You have-
hop into
okay.
that next if you want. 'Cause I
Yeah,
have a
why don't
link
you
for
mention that? 'Cause
everybody.
it was-
Sure.
Yeah, just a way, you didn't have to wear anything, but it can track your symptoms while you're in your home and track your sleep and how you're moving and if you fall. So I'll let you explain that. But again, like, what's really important is that we can get, when you go to your doctor, hopefully long-term, all these objective measurements will be sent to your neurologist. So when you go for the appointment, he can pull up how you're doing and look objectively what's going on with your symptoms to adjust your medication based on objective measurements. So I thought that was really important that, we get a better understanding of how people are really moving. So that was the first one. And of course, exercise. I was going to say this, right? Of course, right? I'm going to, currently exercise, I'm going to say, is the only medicine that can slow the disease progression. Great. I say medicine, but like, honestly, like, when you think about, like, you take your medicine every day, you should also be exercising every day. They're equally as important. Would you ever go a day without taking your medicine? Probably not. So hopefully you would also rate exercise up there as high. Just when we learned about all these toxins in the environment, right? So what can you do now to help protect yourself and your cells? Like, exercise has been shown to provide protection to those cells in your body. So that's something you can do today to help yourself, provide yourself a little bit more protection from these toxins that we obviously we can't avoid them all. They're in our environment. And then, which exercise is the best investment? I get this question a lot because you only have limited time. So if I had to focus on one exercise, which exercise would you do? And of course, like, a lot of us are going to say, well, do something that you will continue to do, that you enjoy. So if you enjoy walking, do that. If you enjoy cycling, do that. You want to find an activity that you'll continue to do ongoing, right? So I always say that, but I did, it's hard to see, but I did put up a graphic. It's the Parkinson's exercise recommendations from the National Parkinson's Foundation. And so they break it down into 4 different exercises: aerobic activity, strength training, balance, agility, and multitasking, and then stretching. So those are like the 4 key components you want to try to hit on. I would say, if you're struggling with, like, coming up with a plan, get a prescription to go see a physical therapist, so you can do some one-on-one, they can talk to you, and you'll have the hour time to really set you up on an exercise program that suits your needs and something that you'll do. And the other thing, in one of the talks, the exercise talks, they talked about meet your motivation where it is. So COM, like, where are you at? So your capability, where are you at as far as your capability of exercising? And your opportunity, what opportunities? Everyone lives in different areas. So what are your opportunities to exercise? Is it through Zoom? Is it in person? Is it on your own? Do you have the support? And then the last one is motivation. Where are you at in terms of your motivation? And that can be really challenging. I know I'm working with a lot of people with Parkinson's, is trying to get that motivation. So sometimes it's really helpful to join a class with other people that will help motivate you. Get a walking buddy so you can be accountable, right? Hey, we're going to walk, every 3 days a week. And that will help give you that motivation to continue to exercise. So those were, I will have to say, there wasn't anything like, wow, mind blowing with exercise. I think we all know exercise is important, but definitely, you know, something that is hard to do, but we have to keep doing. So the last one was Hope for the Future. This was like, there was a lecture on co-pathologies. I don't know if you guys listen to this as well, but just as I mentioned, there's researchers that are working hard to find out why people get Parkinson's and what can be done to slow the progression. I was really impressed. There was these two young female researchers. One was Dr. Georgina Aldridge, and she was from the University of Iowa. Young gal, ran her own lab. She's studying the role of alpha-synuclein co-pathologies, like not only alpha-synuclein, but tau and Lewy body, and how do these co-pathologies affect someone, you know, as far as their cognition and their movement. So it was really encouraging to see these young women studying Parkinson's. I don't know, maybe it's just me. And then the other one was Dr. Ashley Harms from the University of Alabama, also studying the contributions of co-pathologies in activating the immune response. So they find people who have Parkinson's have an increased immune response. And so, like, what's causing this immune response? Is it the combination of other pathologies? Is it increased immune response, which causes more pathologies? But again, really smart women. And actually, Dr. Ashley Harms, if any of you went to Grand Challenges at the Van Andel Institute, like, she was spoke there as well. So hope for the future. Yeah, I mean, these young researchers doing amazing work. So I'm hopeful. Yeah, and that's it.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Angee. And I totally agree. I was really impressed by the number of female scientists there were. I think every panel that I went to, there was at least one woman who was taking leadership of her own lab or of her own study, or leader in DBS. So women were well represented worldwide. And I was happy to see that. I'm happy to see the women in science. So you weren't alone there. I noticed it, and I was happy about it. Okay, well, we are coming close to time, but I do want to just get into a couple other things just to round it out. So I'm going to extend our call by just 15 minutes here. I understand if you have to jump off, that's no problem at all. I'm going to hop onto my presentation just one more time to round out our conversation on technologies, because I have that in mind as well. And
I'm just going to change my pants. I'm going to change my pants.
Hey, Julia, we can hear you. And we're glad that you're going to change your pants.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Babysitting.
That's our Director of Education, Julia Wall. She's wonderful. So I'm just going to hop into that really quick, and then I'm going to toss it over to Christina. It's ludicrous to ask you to get into something like dementia and cognition with like 3 minutes, but see if you can do that. And I'm going to see if I can do the same. And then we'll leave a minute for questions here. So just really quick. I just want to give you the link that I had as well in my presentation. There's just a lot that I'm probably not going to get through. So cutting edge technology, I think we hit on most everything. Ray Dorsey did speak again, just to talk about how we can use technology in terms of clinical trials. He talked about virtual reality and how that can come into play a bit more in many ways, from motor and non-motor perspectives. But the part that I thought was really interesting, and I think I had mentioned this to you, Angee, as well, was Dr. Dina Katabi from MIT. And she was really talking about how AI can help with PD. So a lot of people talked about wearables, and I think those are great. You know, using your Apple Watch, using other wearables that come onto the market to help you. There was even one vendor at the expo that had a wearable for freezing of gait that would buzz and kind of have you go forward. So there are a lot in the way of wearables. But she owns a company now. She put the disclosure out there as well, called Emerald Innovations, and I have that at the bottom here. And it's a wireless in-home device, and it uses signals like Wi-Fi that bounce off of people. And in doing that, the team is able to track, this device is able to track your activities of daily living, gait speed, nocturnal breathing, and it does it all without a lot of equipment. It's a wireless device that is on your wall, and it can help with many things, not just Parkinson's, but other chronic diseases. And she touts it as really being able to change the trajectory of healthcare. I have this picture that came from her TED Talk. And actually this last slide, if you just look her up, or Emerald Innovations, you'll see on that website, her TED Talk, it's like 8 minutes long, is up there. And she just talks about how, you know, this is how on the left they would track nocturnal breathing previously, or just sleeping, your sleeping habits in general. Not very comfortable, not very, you know, easy to use. And on the right is what she's doing. So it's through that wireless device, so you don't have to wear anything. And she's able to track not only breathing, but also heartbeats. With her technology. She has a whole section too on how to make sure that this technology isn't being abused, that, you know, it's not tracking things you don't want it to track, and it's actually for the person who's using it is giving consent as well. So that was the last thing I just wanted to talk about to round out kind of technology and how it can help you track the disease. She even gave an example of, you know, watching someone's record from overnight, and they saw, because they can see like in this person's house, someone waiting outside the bathroom for like, it was like 2 hours or something. And they were like, why would someone be waiting outside the bathroom for 2 hours? And the crowd answered back, caregivers waiting outside the bathroom, and just making sure everything's okay. So that's like the level of detail that it can really get into. And we're not going to get a whole lot of time to talk about the rest. I'll just say the infection and Parkinson's disease portion really was very eye-opening, a little scary. It was just all about, you need to take care of yourself, because the more infections you have that are let into your body, the lower your immune response, and the worse it can be for your neurology. This one was a great one. I won't go into it too deeply since we're running low on time, but I found a great metaphor, not a metaphor, but a explanation, because we do get asked all the time, what's the difference between apathy and depression? And she talked a lot about anxiety, depression, and apathy, and how we need to really be focused on these things so we can help people. She said, think about a cake. So a person who is apathetic doesn't want to eat a piece of cake, but once they have it, they enjoy it. A person with depression doesn't want to eat the cake and won't enjoy it once they have it either. So I thought that was a good distinction, just for me to know. And then she had a really great takeaway here, just for optimizing mental health and Parkinson's. And you can't even read it here. This is a terrible slide, so I'll just read it from my phone. Breathe, optimize PD medications, avoid benzodiazepines, treat depression, include non-drug approaches, no stimulants, caffeine. They said that a couple times in a couple different sessions, and grab life to the fullest. This I just wanted to show you because it was the funniest slide I saw. It is a pig going into an MRI machine. So this was on a talk about cell transplantation, and it was actually really exciting about, you know, how dopamine can be transplanted from one person to another, and you do well in a host brain. So they saw it in this, but I just loved that picture. And then I'll just do one more plug for our talk next week. All right, over to Christina for just a little bit of time here. Can you just give us wave tops on what you learned in terms of cognition and dementia?
Is it okay if I can share my screen?
Yes, absolutely. Let me get out
My
of here.
information
Yeah,
without it.
no problem. Let me just get out of here. It's only letting me pause.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yes, it's only letting me pause. New share. Okay. Okay, try now. I just set it for multiple participants to be able to share. Sure.
Okay, can everybody see my screen without the bar? Can everybody see just basically my PowerPoint, or can you also see this bar? Never mind. I got rid of it. Okay, is everybody able to see this?
Is it still on my screen? Do you still see Michigan Parkinson Foundation,
Yeah.
everybody?
You
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
get up in the corner, there's an opportunity to pull down which screen share you want to see.
Okay.
Parkinson's Foundation or Christina.
Which? Oh, here we go. Sorry, I figured it out. It was just underneath. Okay. Okay, you're good.
All right, everybody's able to see it then.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. All right, so I will try to be really quick. Dr. Pontone was very, very good. He wanted to outline the difference between cognitive impairment and dementia. So you'll see there that cognitive impairment is an impairment in intellectual function. Whereas dementia is the loss of cognitive functioning. So let's see. Okay, yeah, there was a really interesting study called Let's Have Tea. And it was a study on executive functioning. So 20 people with mild to moderate PD and then 10 control people. So people did not have PD. They were given 4 tasks, simple walking, and then they had to carry tea, and then they had to recite a list of words. And then like 5 minutes later, they had to recite those words again, but without doing the task at the same time. They found that when the task complexity was increased, everyone's gait speed decreased. So that was across the board, including the control group, but it was a profound gait speed decrease in people with PD. I really liked his file drawer example that illustrates the contrast between PD and Alzheimer's. So how do you know if it's Alzheimer's? How do you know if it's PD? He used a birthday cake recipe as an example. Someone with Alzheimer's has new learning issues, so they cannot encode the memory of the recipe or where the recipe is at all. The Parkinson's patient would have successful encoding, but may not necessarily remember exactly where the recipe was put. So the PD memory impairment is poor retrieval, but the Alzheimer's memory impairment is an impaired encoding. So a person with PD would eventually find the recipe and remember it with some prompts, but the person with Alzheimer's would never find it even with prompts. So that's a fundamental difference there. Impacts of cognitive impairment on daily functions. This is Alzheimer's, not PD. Repeating the same comment or questions, difficulty learning new info, no longer being able to use things that you use every day, like the remote control, the microwave, etc. Being unable to organize your medications, forgetting simple words, difficulty following conversations or directions, getting lost in familiar places, things to that extent. The big thing here that there are no cliffs in Parkinson's. Suddenly forgetting something or how to do something is not Parkinson's. That's Alzheimer's or dementia. So if you go to the doctor and someone says, oh, I suddenly can't do this, that's not Parkinson's. That's another issue. So again, I'm going to go with Angee and say staying well cognitively includes exercise, healthy diet, like the MIND diet, which is the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet together, good sleep hygiene, social interactions. And COVID, actually, there have been a lot of studies done. COVID revealed just how much socialization affects cognition. So a lot of people that had PD, Alzheimer's, dementia, they really went downhill during COVID when we were all isolated. So those are the 2 that I'll go through. I don't really want to go through any more because I don't want to take up any more time. But
Okay, thanks, Christina. And sorry that had to be so quick because it's a really great discussion. And if we do another one on cognition, we might invite you back just to just share anything else that you might have learned. And I see in the chat, yes, can someone have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease? Yes. So from the Alzheimer's Association, we would call it Parkinson's dementia, as kind of a stage or a continuum of the disease. It's different proteins in the brain that cause each of them, but the short answer and the easy answer is yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wasn't clear on Kevin's description of the chart and how it would be marked. I wish he had a drawing that he could hold up and show us.
So I can put a drawing together and send it to Kristin.
That sounds
Cool.
good. We can get that out. Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. That chart. Okay, other questions? I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I'd love to hear if you had any other questions, both about what we talked about, or if there's anything we didn't discuss that you're wondering if it was covered at the World Parkinson Congress.
I have a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
You said Parkinson's is man-made, but it's not exclusively man-made.
No, it's not exclusively man-made. So the argument that Ray Dorsey is really making in his presentation and in his book is that the things we know are man-made should be eliminated. The things we know cause neurodegenerative diseases should be eliminated. That doesn't touch the genetic component, and it doesn't touch a large portion of the disease, which we don't know why it happens. So it's just when we know that it's causing Parkinson's, we need to do all we can to stop it.
And remember,
Thank you.
the genetic component was quite small in comparison to the rest, which seems to be very largely connected to environmental toxins and contaminants and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the genetic component, we're talking about 15%, about 15%.
Right. And just because you have the bad gene for GBA1 or LRRK2 doesn't mean you get Parkinson's. It just increases your possibility of getting Parkinson's.
Is there
Thank you.
explanation as to why that Parkinson's disease cases don't exist in the continent of Africa?
Well, they do exist. I did listen to a few talks on that. It's just in Africa, the patients are not treated very well. They believe that it's their Parkinson's was caused by witchcraft. And so a lot of patients will not then open up to say that they have Parkinson's. And there is a really big movement in Africa to try and get things moving a little bit to have some more westernized medicine. They also can't even get access to carbidopa, levodopa like we would have over here.
Yeah, so
So it's more lack of reporting maybe than anything else.
but it's not that their use or application of pesticides is not as prevalent. That's what I immediately thought of when I saw the blue, that it's, too expensive to purchase, so they don't utilize it.
Or it's just not part of their culture, or
Yeah, it could be that in part, that it's, not a part of their culture, not used or not sold over there as frequently. But I think the broader public health crisis in Africa is probably the biggest contribution to why the numbers seem so low there. It's not exclusive to Parkinson's either. But they did have a number of different sessions about work that a few scientists are doing in and with Africa.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And just in answer to one of the questions here, yes, this will be available for later viewing. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So if you go to our website, right at the top of the page, you see the little play button. That'll take you right to our YouTube channel, and you can find exercise classes, all of our education series that we ever do, including this one, caregiver training videos, lots of good stuff. Okay, one more question. We'll take one more question, then we'll wrap up.
Hey,
Anyone else?
Angie, can you hear me?
Yes, is that Nate?
Nate Jolliff here.
Hi, Nate.
Hi, Angie. Quick question. I'm a big Rocksteady boxing fan.
Yeah.
I call it my anger management therapy.
Yeah.
Getting things. Was that ever discussed, or the benefits of Rocksteady? And do you plan to bring that into, emulate that somehow in your training program going forward?
Yeah. So there was Rocksteady Boxing was they had a booth in the area that I didn't go to, but so they didn't talk specifically about Rocksteady Boxing, but if you think about Rocksteady Boxing and the premise, it's about like intensity and rotation and mobility and balance. So it takes all these activities, and you work really hard. So I think when we talk about like that, the graph that I showed from the Parkinson's Foundation, we talked about aerobic conditioning. So when you think about aerobic conditioning, getting your heart rate up, that's where the boxing comes into play. We know that it's really important to work hard and get your heart rate up. The more you exercise, the better you're gonna do. I mean, minimum 3 days a week. If you exercise 4 days a week, that's even better. If you exercise 5 days a week, that's even better. If you can increase your intensity, that's even better. So I think the boxing is fun. So it's engaging. People do it, right? People want to go, and it's intense. So you're really working hard and getting your heart rate up. So they didn't talk specifically about Rocksteady Boxing, but exercise in general in terms of working hard, increasing your heart rate, intensity, how important that was. As far as, providing a boxing class through the Parkinson's program, I don't know, we have to talk about that. So some of the exercise classes through Zoom that I teach on Tuesdays, like today, I did like hit a circuit. So, and that can be pretty intense. So it's not boxing per se, but you're still doing a circuit, you're getting your heart rate up. I think the idea is still kind of similar. But yeah, there's lots this is my third day, so.
Yeah. Angie's still pretty new with us. And I will say at the Congress as well, they did a Rocksteady demo. They did a dance with PD dance demo. They did a ping pong demo. So they were really trying to integrate all the different exercises.
Zumba.
Oh, Zumba, I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key really is find something you love to do, that you're motivated to do, to get to that third point that Angee was talking about, and keep doing that. Yeah. Find something you love and keep doing it, whether it's ping pong, whether it's dance, whether it's Rocksteady. And I guess for the question of, are we going to do it here? I think that's absolutely something we can talk about. And I know a couple groups who are interested in that, but yeah, find something you love and do it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming to this session today. I know we probably had, like, very honestly, when I'm thinking of all the information that we all came together with beforehand, probably 3 hours worth of information to talk about, and especially opening it up for questions from all of you. So thank you for participating in this. Thank you for your questions. Please keep attending these virtual education series. Again, they are all on our YouTube. And I just want to give a special thanks and shout out to Shaun and Christina for taking such diligent notes and then sharing your experience with us and with the community.
Not a problem at all.
Yep.
We'll have you back. We're good partners, good friends with Parkinson's Association of West Michigan, so we'll definitely have you back.
Just let us know anytime.
Yep.
Absolutely.
you.
Well, thank you to everyone. Stay in touch, be well, and don't forget to exercise.
Yeah, every morning, 10 o'clock through Zoom.
Yeah, that's right. Every morning, 10 o'clock. All right. Thanks, everybody.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
Great to meet you guys.